No, because Indiana, while looking good, they could their record could be sparkling right now. To be honest, they could be undefeated in the Big Ten very easily, and losing to Syracuse on the road that shouldn't have happened. So this is a team that could be actually doing better, but they're doing fine and they're in a great position. Their schedule has got them set up to do something they haven't done in 5 years now, make the NCAA tournament, which would make the fans extraordinarily happy. The Big Ten is a tough league again, and I think that there's going to be at least 8 teams out of this league go to the tournament, Kevin.
Yeah, I don't think it's as tough as the last 2 years as I've covered it, but it's still a decent league.
It's not as tough as the top, but it seems like it's about the same from 2 through 8 or 9.
I don't know. I thought last year was deeper because I think Maryland is down. I think Michigan is down. I think there's some programs that are, Minnesota, I know did some good things early, but they're a little down. But I do think Purdue and Wisconsin are certainly the heavyweights, and they're really tough. And if you can get wins against those two teams at home, and you're
Michigan
Indiana,
State
11-0 at home. And Ohio State is certainly already a quality win you have on your resume. So I think there's going to be opportunities there. Illinois at home. I mean, Illinois is we cracked into the top 25 this week. But whereas, if you remember last year, you had about 6 or 7 teams in the top 25 consistently. The Big Ten right now, you only have 4 or 5. I think that's where to me, I'm looking at the previous 2 years when I've been on the beat covering Indiana. You had about 6 or 7 teams in that top 25 conversation during the course of the year. This year, you only have about 4 or 5, maybe.
Chronic, your thoughts?
No, I do agree with Kevin. I don't think it's as strong as what it was perhaps last year with some of those marquee teams being down. But I think kind of like what you saw in football this year, the meat of the conference, the middle of the conference, is going to be extraordinarily competitive. It's going to make winning those games on the road extraordinarily difficult. It's going to put a gigantic emphasis on protecting your home court, because as we've seen already, any team can lose to pretty much anybody on any given night. Ask Rutgers, ask Purdue. What is Purdue still holding third, I think, nationally in the poll right now? They're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're 8th in the Big Ten. No, I'm sorry, 7th in the Big Ten at the moment. 3rd in the country, 7th in the conference.
Yeah.
Yes, it's still early in the conference season, but we are. We're effectively, we're past the quarter point already. So as things are starting to take shape here, it's you can't take anybody for granted right now. Going to Iowa City has rarely been an easy task for Indiana. It's certainly going to be a winnable game this Tuesday night. But you're coming off a team that's currently in the buried in the bottom half of the league right now, and is probably poised to find a game where they just go berserk from a shooting standpoint. This is a team that can score the ball really well. It's going to put Indiana's defense to the test, but I think that's kind of indicative of what you're going to see for the remainder of the season. You absolutely cannot let your guard up for a moment because wins are always going to be tough to come by, and expect this season to be no different than any in recent memory. It's going to be a gauntlet. And, there's probably going to be some teams that Indiana absolutely cannot afford to lose to as they're trying to build their resume. We still don't know exactly who those are yet. I think Maryland is probably one of those that, you should look at as a gimme. But again, there's bad losses on the schedule as well if you were to drop those games, and you have to avoid those just as much as you have to pick up those big wins along the way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But like you said, you kind of took my next question out. Well, you don't know who those are yet. Although Penn State appears to be one of those, they're playing teams tough. Nebraska is probably one of those teams, but they're going to knock somebody off. They've been playing teams close at home. They're playing Illinois at home tonight, I think. So I agree. There's not a team that you can take for granted in the league. I don't care what place if they're 14th, it doesn't matter. You've seen that. You take one night off, you have a 22-point lead, and you relax, it's gone. And I think that they learned a valuable lesson in that Wisconsin game. And we saw that in the Ohio State game. they stayed strong, or they started and stayed that way. They didn't have that lull, that really bad lull that they have been having up through the season, up through now. Kevin.
By the way, I just pulled up the AP poll. Purdue dropped to number 7 in the country.
Okay.
Wisconsin is 13, Ohio State 16, and Illinois is now in at 25. And Michigan State is 10, remained at 10. So you've got 5 teams in there, and teams that Indiana is going to see later in the season with a chance for some quality wins. Certainly Illinois at home, Wisconsin at home, Purdue at home. And then you get Purdue on the road and Michigan State on the road. Those 5 games are going to be – and you get Ohio State on the road too. So February really, this February is going to be a bear of a schedule. And you just hope that this – I think Indiana team grows to the point and continues to build confidence to where they go into those February games believing they can win. We certainly saw what happened last year with Archie. You're 12-9 and then you lose 6 in a row. 10 a year, and the season goes up in smoke. So you want to build this team to when it gets into February where they can, I think, kind of believe and have the confidence and build the depth too, which I think Mike Woodson's done a good job of doing, especially with Trey Galloway back now, Jordan Geronimo, getting that second unit, believing in that second unit through their offensive lulls, because he knows they're going to need him, deeper into the season when teams get tired.
Absolutely. And this has been fun to watch this team, Chronic, improve. And we have seen them improve over the last couple of games. Not to say that there's not going to be lulls, because each game is and that's another thing about Woody. You can tell he's taken each game as the matchups come. The starting lineups are the same, but his rotations are not the same. His sequencing is not the same. And I like that. That tells you that you got somebody who knows what the hell's going on, and they're paying attention to what is happening in the game right now.
One thing that you hear Woody constantly circling back to is the concept of these guys, and it's a two-way street in the locker room, but this is a team still getting to know each other. He's still trying to get to know his guys. His guys are still trying to get to know him. And you hear that echoed in a lot of the comments from the players themselves. And I think you see that reflected in games like Minnesota, games like Ohio State, but also games like Wisconsin and Syracuse, where, when Indiana is at a high leverage point, who's going to be the guys that can apply that leverage for him? When they start off the second half and watch that 10-point lead just evaporate, in a series of plays, who's the guy that he can rely on to kind of steady the ship and get them back on track? And, so far we've seen they've been able to ratchet the defense up when they need to make those pivots. And it's certainly been a process to this point, but it's certainly something where you're seeing the lessons internalized. You're seeing it be effectuated on the floor. And I'm not saying that it's the lessons complete right now, far from it, as a matter of fact. But, the Minnesota game, kind of the antithesis of what happened up at the Kohl Center in Wisconsin. Team had a pretty strong first half, especially the close to the first half, came out really flat in the second, but they were able to get their legs back underneath them and close it out and get, even get the cover on that. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on. As I said, after the Minnesota game, though, for a defense that's really establishing itself as this team's identity, we have still yet to see it on the road, and we've still yet to see it for a full 40 minutes. So there's certainly a lot of growth available for this team. But the thing that sticks out for me right now, at least at this point in the year, there is a foundation, there is an identity that they can build upon, and now they've got to find a way to take it on the road, because that's going to be the critical component. I mean, I don't care if you're talking about competing for the Big Ten or in the NCAA. Eventually, you're going to have to win some games outside of Assembly Hall or the great state of Indiana.
And the difference in home, too, of being able to have a kind of a crowd spur you on in that last 10 minutes as opposed to last year when you didn't have it, I think is something that certainly is helping Woody and the players as well. And I think the Wisconsin, when you're on the road, on the other hand, and things start to go, south, and you have a crowd against you that can get in a team's heads too. So I think that's the whole thing, that home and road aspect. And I also thought it was interesting in the Minnesota game. You start out shooting lights out from 3, 7-14, but what did Woody do to ready the ship? He went inside to Trace. He went inside to Race. He recognized the mismatch on Race and the guards, and that 10-0 run was really fueled by, bringing the ball back outside after they kind of lost their way offensively the first 10 minutes of the second half and throwing up some wild shots. Xavier Johnson, going coast to coast and trying to bang shots in and so forth. And I think they got really disciplined offensively there in the last 10 minutes and went to their bread and butter.
Yeah, you got to shake your moneymaker. And obviously, Minnesota has employed a tactic that you're probably going to see a lot more down the road. Just throw the kitchen sink at Trace and make everybody else beat you. Indiana was fortunate. Rob Finney stepped up pretty big. That was one of the better games of his career at Indiana. We're going to have to see more consistent play across the board from the backcourt, though. But while I do think going back to your bread and butter is wise, it starts with getting stops. This team, when they're able to string some stops together, the offense gets a whole lot easier for everybody involved when they can get in transition.